Joining me now, Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. She's a Democrat from Virginia. Good to have you with us. You know, if we pick up on January 6th, where we just left off with Whitney there, the Senate report, which came out on January 6th, I know you said highlighted that we did learn about some of the failures in terms of intelligence communication and security failures at the Capitol. We didn't, though, learn about the root causes there. No mention of former President Trump. And we know this bipartisan attempt to learn more about what happened leading up to January 6th and on that day just failed in the Senate. I mean, is it your sense now that this ship has sailed, some sort of a bipartisan effort or even a real desire to learn about what happened?
Erica, I don't think that's an acceptable option. We have a circumstance, and I was in the Capitol on January 6th. I was in the House chamber when we had to lock down the doors, get down. I was there as I watched police officers put benches and tables in front of the doors, trying to stop the insurrectionists from being able to break through the doors. This was a serious assault on our democracy. More than 140 police officers were brutalized, losing fingers, losing eyes. We saw deaths on that day, and there were people who, as they say, as mentioned in your prior reporting, were focused on digesting a pack of lies and came to Washington, as they say, at the urging of former President Trump, attempting to stop Congress from doing its duty. And so while it's important that we saw the first report and this report about the actual failures that occurred on that day of January 6th in terms of an operational failure to keep the building secure, what's really important is understanding how we got to January 6th in the first place. It's important to know that the intelligence wasn't passed to all the people it needed to be passed to. But when there's intelligence saying that there are American citizens who plan on marching on the Capitol, they think they're doing it because they believe the president wants them to do it, and they plan on stopping Congress, and they plan on terrorizing lawmakers, we need to understand what got our country to that point. I mean, frankly, Erica, it's if your roof collapses and someone says, well, there was structural damage. Well, of course, there's structural damage, but we need to know why that structural damage was there so that we can prepare and ensure it never happens again. And this is the very structure of our democracy. So it's incredibly important that we understand the root causes that got us to that day.
So how do you do that? What in your eyes would be the best path? And is there a bipartisan path to do that? Because as we know, if it's not bipartisan, it's going to be viewed in that light.
Yeah. I mean, arguably, it has to be nonpartisan, or it has to be bipartisan in terms of who's coming to the table. But everyone sitting at that table doing the review of what led us to that point has to be committed to taking party out of it. It isn't what happened to Democrats or to Republicans. It's about what happened to the American people and the American democracy. So certainly there are ongoing discussions about potentially a presidential commission. There's ongoing discussions about a congressional select committee. If there's a select committee, for it to have the real the power that it would need, it has to be bipartisan, and it has to be bipartisan in that it's not a group of Democrats talking to a group of Republicans. It's a group of Americans who represent a broad array of political philosophy, perhaps, but united in their desire to truly understand what led our country to such an unthinkable event that we would see our fellow citizens conducting an insurrection, beating police officers, and walking through the halls of the United States Capitol screaming, "Hang Mike Pence."
We will be watching and seeing what happens there. I do want to get you on infrastructure as well. You're part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, and we know you've just put out your own proposal, $1.25 trillion, I believe. The big question, though, and the big sticking point, as we know, is how to pay for this. How do you pay for that? That's what we need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Erica, those conversations are still ongoing. I think, many people across Capitol Hill have been of the opinion that we have to first agree upon what it is that we are actually wanting to fund, and then have the next discussion of how we pay for it. Certainly, I align with many of my colleagues, which say we have to, recognize the real need of paying for these major investments. And frankly, we are looking at making record investments in American infrastructure in our nation. And so I don't think that there's a need for us to rush through this process. We should be focused and determined and informed by the president's proposal, certainly the American Jobs Plan, which is physical infrastructure, and more expansive elements of our social infrastructure. And we should really drill down on what it is that we are putting forth in terms of the investments we're making, and from there continue the conversations about how to pay for it. So those conversations are ongoing. As you might imagine, a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and we're working through them, really trying to come up with agreements that are going to be productive and useful and helpful to the Biden administration as we move forward.
So I have 10 seconds. So what you're saying is no timeline.
Currently, ideally, the first step was agreeing to what we wanted to pay for, and now the second step is agreeing to how to pay for it. So,
all right.
I would say, thoughtful, purposeful legislating doesn't always need to have a fixed timeline.
Fair enough. Well, we look forward to the updates when they come. Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much.